Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, where we believe that everyone is creative, but smart creative people don't go it alone.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell, and we are creativity coaches who help people clarify and accomplish their creative goals.
Hey, you should know that just by listening to this podcast, you are joining a warm and wonderful clan of creatives.
Well, hold up. You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File?
Well, a spark file is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations. Every episode, we're going to reach into our spark files and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're also going to talk to some folks who spark us.
And your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to take some of those sparks of inspiration and make something of your own. So without further ado, let's open up the Spark File. Hi, Laura Camion.
Hey, hi, Suze. I'm excited. It's recording day.
It's recording day. Are you ready to be sparked?
I'm so ready to be sparked. I'm so intrigued, and I cannot wait.
For those about to spark, we salute you. And I almost forgot. Laura Camion, you are going to help me in the course of this spark. I'm going to go ahead and put a message in the chat so you can access it. So,
oh my goodness.
I'm very excited to share this spark with you. This is something we have discussed and never done. It's been one of those, it would be fun one day. So at the top of almost every class we lead at the Spark File, someone reads the Spark File course guidelines, a poem. Now, as advertised on the label, this is a poem, I use that term loosely, that summarizes the core ethos of the Spark File. It's what we stand for and what we are asking of anyone who participates in the Spark File. So Laura, I just sent you the link to the Spark File course guidelines, a poem. Would you like to read them now?
If I could get this big grin off my face, I would love to read these guidelines. I'm so happy about this, Suze. I'm so happy. All right. Here are the Spark File course guidelines. Hey, you, the real, authentic, open you. Welcome to the present moment and this space where you are safe to be brave with the knowledge that all of us have your back. While you're here, please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space. Grant grace and assume the best of yourself and others. Preface creative possibilities with, may I offer you a thought? And receive consent before proceeding. Know that lessons learned here can leave here, while personal stories shared here stay here. Creative risk lies ahead. Side effects may vary and can include responses in your body, heart, mind, or behaviors. Trust in the knowledge that you are a strong creative conduit and it's all tolerable. Plus, you are empowered to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. During your time here, may your conversational turn-taking be balanced, and may you rest easy in the knowledge that no one is above you, no one is below you, and haters have a special place to the left. Gentle sparkler, let these truths resonate through your body electric. As long as you are present when you are present, do the work, and aren't being a dick. However you're doing it right.
Yes. Well done, Laura Camion. Thank you so much for reading that.
My pleasure.
Again, that was the Spark File course guidelines, a poem that we share at the top of every class. That's the version as it exists today. You never know. Course guidelines, a poem might change in the future.
They evolve.
But that's they evolve, but that's the current version. And we're here to tell you it's chock-a-block with sparks.
Oh my
So, for
God.
my spark today, I thought it'd be fun to learn the history of the guidelines and unpack some of the key sparks in the guidelines
Ah,
so folks can learn what informs those guidelines and the whole vibe of the spark file. Yeah,
yeah. And a lot of it is like science backed as well. So we
that's
didn't
right,
just
baby.
make all this up.
We're not
It's
just
very
pulling most
exciting.
of this out of our butts. Some of it is backed
Just
by
a little bit.
science and research. So let's start with the history of the guidelines. When I had been teaching for a while, I learned that it was helpful to set some ground rules at the top of each class or workshop that I led. And usually they were simple, like you are
Hmm.
empowered what you need to do to take care of yourself, meaning if you need to go to the bathroom, you don't need to raise your hand and ask my permission.
That's right.
You're, you know, you're
You're
grown.
free. You're an
You're
adult.
free. Do
Yeah.
what you need to do.
Hmm.
And sometimes it had to do with the subject matter. So, something I learned from my writing teacher, Linda Berry, and I think it's true. If you're writing and you get tired, just put your head down. No good writing happens when you're trying to force yourself to stay awake. So that's the kind of thing I'd be like,
Hmm.
just before we get started, I just want a few ground rules, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then, when Laura and I first started teaching creativity courses with the Spark File, we would share the community rules in the
Hmm.
class. Do you remember this, Laura?
I
In the
do. A
class
list.
Facebook group. Yep, a
Yes.
list. And we would talk through that list
Yep.
on the first day of
Like be
class.
kind, assume the
Yes.
best, things like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. At some point, we thought, you know what would be more creative and fun and memorable if we wove all of this into this handy dandy poem that we could read at the top of each class. So it's not something that you hear one time or you read one time and you kind of half remember it. It's top of mind, it's on the tip of your tongue, it's very, very easy to reference. And thus, the Sparkfile course guidelines, a poem was born. So
Beautiful.
let's unpack some key phrases in there. Let's do a little literary analysis, if you will. And we're going to start at the top, Laura Camion. And please, because you're all up in here. You are woven into this
Listen,
thing.
that's the
You're
beauty of it. You are woven into it. I'm woven into it. And so much of our Sparkfile community is
yeah,
woven into it.
yeah.
I love it. I'm
So
loving
check
this.
me because there's things I may forget in this
Okay.
session of pop-up videos. Okay.
Okay.
So it starts with, hey, you, the real, authentic, open you. So this is us inviting your best self, the most authentic, open hearted version of you to show up. In the Spark
Yes.
file, so long as you are respectful of others and their boundaries, you're invited to be the real, authentic, open you. Everyone is invited to be authentic and talk about things that are more challenging or less flattering to themselves.
Yes.
And when framed constructively, we believe that candor and vulnerability is like a miracle grow for personal and creative development.
That's right. And we wanted to also emphasize like there's so much positivity in this space that there are times when it can feel like, oh, I guess I have to put on a positive face
Right.
regardless of how I'm feeling today. And
Right.
we're like, nope. We want you to be your authentic self. Now, please, if your authentic self is feeling like lashing out and being cruel to others, then no, we don't want it. But you don't have to come in and pretend that you're not feeling however you're feeling that day.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
important to us. Yeah,
But please reference as long as you're not being a dick. Like that,
correct.
it's on balance with that. So,
That's right. That's right.
so moving forward, welcome to the present moment and this space where you are safe to be brave with the knowledge
Yes.
that all of us have your back. So, welcome to the present moment and this space is essentially us summoning people into the present moment. As we know, our brains were built to time travel to keep us safe. Our brains are forever assessing the past and rehearsing the future. And we're inviting people to come into the present moment and this space, this gathering of people where it is safe to be brave. Now, this is a reference to something Laura learned in a class she took at Harvard because she's fancy, taught by a woman named Jennifer McCrae. Laura was introduced to the concept of moving from safe spaces to brave spaces. Laura, will you tell us a little bit about that learning?
Absolutely. This kind of blew my mind because at the time there was a lot of talk, and probably still is, about creating a safe space in
Mhm.
classrooms, in workshops, in the
In work
office, everywhere,
environments,
in work
yeah, yep.
environments. And what they had learned, and Suze, you're going to need to remind me the authors' names of this paper.
You got it. It's Brian Arreo and Christy Clemens. And the name of the paper, it's a white paper titled From Safe Spaces to Brave Spaces, a New Way to Frame Dialogue Around Diversity and Social Justice.
Loved it so much. Incredible work. Incredible work. And what they had discovered is that when you consistently refer to the space as safe,
Mhm.
everyone set up an expectation that they would never be asked to feel discomfort,
Yeah.
meaning it's a safe space. I can say what I like. Well, if I may say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, or you may say something that makes me feel uncomfortable. And they had conflated the idea of safety with comfort.
Yeah.
And we are very specifically working in a space where the very act of taking a creative risk, which we'll talk about more in a minute, brings a sense of discomfort. If you are
Mm.
stepping outside of your comfort zone and taking a risk, making yourself vulnerable, you are safe to do so. But really, what we're asking you to do is to be brave. And
Yes.
so, what the authors of this paper kept emphasizing is that what we're really looking for is bravery. And we want to create a brave space where people feel brave enough to hang with the discomfort that they may feel. Hang in there. You may learn something, you may disagree with someone. That is okay. That's not going to hurt you. And taking a risk or making yourself vulnerable is not going to hurt you. And so, we combine them to say, this is a space where it is safe to be brave.
Yeah. That was beautifully put, Laura. And it's so true. Here at the Spark File, we know that growth, creative or otherwise, it can't happen without learning to accept a certain amount of discomfort, embracing the discomfort, dare we
That's
say,
right. That's
and
right.
creating and sharing our work requires that vulnerability. It requires us to be brave. So within the group, as Laura said, we ask folks to be brave, whether you are staring down a blank page or a blank canvas or a creativity share. We're asking people to be brave when you're sharing your work and receiving that feedback. When we have guest teachers and they do things a little differently than Susan and Laura do them, when new members join, we're asking people to be brave with the knowledge that we've got your back. More on that in just a second.
That's right.
But it, it, uh, that's what it takes to show up and do the work and show up and share the work.
That's right. And I think we would both, probably make a case for taking any class or being involved in any group where you don't feel challenged, you don't ever feel vulnerable, and you never feel discomfort. You may not be learning as much as you'd like to be learning,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
growing as much as you'd like to grow.
Yes, yes. So that passage ends with where you are safe to be brave with the knowledge that all of us have your back. That's a term, have your back. We've got your back. That's a term
Hmm.
borrowed from the world of improv. And
Yes.
it might mean if you take a risk in this space, I'm going to provide a soft place for you to land. Or it might
Yep.
mean if I have a resource you're seeking, I'm going to share it with you. The old, I got your back.
Yep, and I'm not gonna let you fall on your face. I'm just not going
Yeah.
to. So that old, like, if you're standing on stage and you loft a joke out there that does not land, I'm not gonna leave you there just looking at you. Like, we're gonna move on together. Yep.
Eggy with egg on your face.
Yeah, not gonna happen.
Not going to leave you
Mhm.
eggy. So, moving on. While you are here, please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space.
Mm,
This idea of taking responsibility for the energy you bring into a space is inspired by the work of Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, who you may have heard me talk about on this very podcast before. Dr. Bolte Taylor is a neuroanatomist, an author, and a speaker who delivered a very, very popular, wonderful TED Talk in 2008, in which she told the story of how she suffered a stroke. And because she was a neuroanatomist, she was able to lucidly perceive and document the experience. When she was recovering in the hospital, as a result of her brain injury and the subsequent surgery, she was extremely emotionally open.
Yeah.
So open, in fact, that she would empathically, viscerally pick up on the energy of anyone who entered the room, doctors, nurses, visitors, to the point where she had a sign put up that said, "Please take responsibility for the energy you bring into the space."
Mm.
In the Spark file, starting with little Laura Camion over there and little Susie Blackwell over here, we are extremely perceptive. We are open
Yep.
people, as are many of our clients. And we want our spaces, our cohorts, our workshops to be filled with people who have the emotional and social intelligence to manage their energy
Oh,
and
yes.
do what they need to do to, if their nervous systems are dysregulated, to be able to say, my nervous system is dysregulated, instead of like lashing out, etc.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
thus, please take responsibility for the energy you bring into this space.
One of my favorites.
I
One of my
enjoy it.
favorites.
The next up in the poem is grant grace and assume the best of yourself and others. This is a
Yes.
two-parter. The first part, grant grace, grew out of conversations I had with Spark Filer Scott Barnhart. Hi,
Hey.
Scott.
Hi,
What are you doing? Walking
Scotty.
your dog? Listen to this. You go for a run? What are you doing, Scott? You feel seen?
Oh, I
Do you feel
love it.
violated? So Scott Barnhart, during the pandemic, we were collaborating together on something, and all of us during the pandemic we were working off road. We were adapting to new and sometimes extreme circumstances, and we were all navigating really steep learning curves. And Scott would say, "Grant grace, we got to grant grace," and I was
Oh,
like, "Noted, grant
so
grace."
good. And what a way to live. What a way to live.
Also, a great drag king name, Grant Grace. The second part of that phrase, assume the best of yourself and others, grew out of my tendency, a human tendency, I think, to make up the worst possible stories and narratives.
Mm,
Like if someone, a look passes over someone's face, I'm
some
like,
side eye.
they're mad at me.
Yeah,
I did something to make them mad. So it reminds me slash us that we are going to assume the best of ourselves and others, not the worst.
that's right.
Yeah. And it's not just about others, it's about assume the best of yourself.
That's
Assume the
right.
best of yourself, which I mean, I am so tough on myself. And so kind of it's a shorthand for saying don't make yourself wrong all the time.
Yep,
All of this is about like choose a different neural pathway, choose a different narrative. So
that's
grant,
exactly right.
grant grace and assume the best of yourself and others. Next up, preface creative possibilities with may I offer you a thought and receive consent before proceeding.
Mm.
This harkens back to the SparkFile feedback process, which is a very artist centered feedback process where the artist states the feedback they are seeking. We don't just see someone's work and then start noting them to death and telling them how we think they should do their piece.
Oh, no.
We address the feedback that they are seeking. And super bonus, we ask consent before we start sharing our 2 cents. And people are welcome to say, "No, thank you. I'm not open to that type of feedback at this time."
That's right.
They can decide if it's right for them or not.
This is such a great rule for life in general. Like, oh gosh, I'm not going to remember this correctly, but like a year or two back, there was a thing going around on Instagram that was basically about like when your partner or someone starts talking to you, ask them, like, are you looking for sympathy or are you looking for
Sympathy
ideas or
solutions. Yeah.
solutions? That's right, sympathy or
Yeah.
solutions.
Yeah.
And the power of that is stopping to ask, like, is this what you need right now? May I offer, are you open to receiving
Yeah.
solutions? And the person gets to say, actually, no, right now, I just want you to listen because I just need to cry this out. And that's perfectly acceptable. And it's a very similar idea here that, like, before I offer you some idea about your main character or some idea about your performance, I check to see is this what you're looking for in this moment, and you get to say yay or nay.
Yeah. Consent.
Consent. It's a powerful thing.
It's what's for dinner. Next up, know that lessons learned here can leave here, while personal stories shared here stay here. Laura, I wish I could tell you where I first heard this. I know it was from a teacher. Was it from you?
It was from me. I
You are a
was that
teacher.
teacher. I took a class, it
God
was a
bless you.
DEI workshop that was phenomenal, and they phrased it a little different. Like, this has a spark file, phrasing to it, but essentially they were like, "Anything you learn here can leave with you, but stories that you hear from other people stay here." And so
Love
we
that.
we made that lessons learned here can leave here, while personal stories
Personal
shared here
shared here,
stay
stay
here.
here.
That's
This I
right.
appreciate so much. I used to do with every writing class I taught, I would do this very involved confidentiality pact with the room.
Uh-huh.
And this is so much more efficient and elegant, and people understand it immediately.
That's
So
right.
you were the teacher, Laura. You were the teacher I learned this from, and you learned it from an awesome DEI workshop.
That's correct, and boy, do I wish I could remember the name of the teacher I learned it from. It
Thank
is
you, teacher.
not thank you. Thank you, teacher. I
Thank you.
apologize, but
Yeah.
I remember the work done in that room, and it was fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay, next up, creative risk lies ahead. Side effects may vary and can include responses in your body, heart, mind, or behaviors. Trust in the knowledge that you are a strong creative conduit and it's all tolerable. So, this
Mm,
is just like a tip of the
mm.
hat to a medication, prescription medication commercial, but also it's our concise reminder that creative risk may come with feelings attached.
Yep.
You may experience it as a visceral feeling. Your palms may start sweating. You may experience it emotionally. You might be like, oh, I don't know why I feel sort of cranky now. Your mind might start racing, or it might flatline, or you may want to crawl under the quilt. So that's body, heart, mind behaviors.
Yep.
Um, but that reminder that we are strong creative conduits and it's all tolerable. We are strong creative
Yes.
conduits. These things can move through us
Yes.
like a storm cloud moving in across the sky, dropping some rain and moving it on. And
Yes.
it is tolerable. A fellow teacher reminded me recently that sometimes it's not tolerable. It can become too overwhelming and our systems can feel too dysregulated, which leads to our next sentiment. You are empowered to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, which is to say, you get to decide your path forward and what you need to do to take care of yourself. Do you need to step outside the room? Do you need to turn your camera off? Do you need a drink of water? Cool. Do what you need to do to take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Anything about that, Laura?
I too. I'm gonna say about the tolerability and the creative risk.
Yeah.
We have curriculum on this that we know we could talk for 2 hours on this very concept right here, and so it's a nice reminder in the weekly reading of the guidelines just to harken back to this idea that part of what we're doing in the Spark file is building that muscle. The understanding of knowing every time when I take a creative risk, I can start to observe what happens in my mind, my heart, my body, my behaviors. It may not be the same every time. Depends on the what's at stake and the level of the risk. But what we're learning by repeatedly taking a risk is that we can handle it. We can actually take a step up next time. We can go a bit higher. We can level up in our what we call our Guggenheim spiral of growth.
Thank you, Melissa Machito. We
Thank you,
learned that from you.
Melissa. And in that way, if it's not tolerable, maybe it was too big of a leap in that moment. It was too big of a jump for you on that particular day.
Mm,
But by training ourselves gently, just like an athlete trains themselves over and over using that muscle, it's you can learn that it's all tolerable. And then, as Susan said, if it's not feeling good to you today, you are empowered to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. I love it. I
yeah.
stand by it. Stamp of approval.
Excellent. Moving forward. During your time here, may your conversational turn taking be balanced. So, this is a direct reference to the work that Google did on
Mhm.
Project Aristotle. This is a study that they conducted. It was some real intense research to determine why some of their teams and their groups absolutely thrived and some did not. And what they discovered is there are two major factors that determine the quality of a team. If they are able to engage in balanced conversational turn taking, meaning every member of the group speaks roughly the same amount, and if they are able to co create an environment of psychological safety. This entire guideline is about creating psychological
That's
safety,
right.
but may your conversational turn taking be balanced is our way of reminding people of that part of it.
Absolutely, and that's how we, yes, we remind people every time, but we keep the, I guess, the oxygen in the room. It gets to be shared by everyone, and no
Yes,
one gets to
yes.
take it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and also don't hide. Like step forward,
Also,
step
don't hide.
back.
That's right.
In addition to making space for other people to speak, also if you have a tendency, kind of like I do, even though I have a podcast, I don't know, to be kind of quiet and only speak in a class when you're absolutely certain that what you have to say is relevant and clearly stated, etc. Step forward, step forward. So balance conversational turn taking.
Mhm.
The poem continues, and may you rest easy in the knowledge that no one is above you, no one is below you, and haters have a special place to the left.
Fan
This is
favorite.
my fan favorite. This is my own philosophy that I snuck in here.
Yes. Yes.
There is no doubt that we live in a hierarchical world. If you have any doubt, book an acting gig on a TV show or a film and look at the call sheet. Essentially, the call sheet is a schedule for the day and it ranks every actor from number one, the biggest star, on down the line 2, 3, 4, 5, 157. I find I move through the world with more peace and confidence when I carry this in my heart and my mind. No one is above me, no one is below me. Haters have a special place to the left. So, haters meaning super negative people, destructive
Mm-mm.
people, they can
Yeah,
fuck off. They
that's
can
right.
fuck off straight off the bat. Everyone else, no one is above me, no one is below me. In my heart, we are all on equal footing. The movie star, the teenager I meet on the Amtrak train, the server at a restaurant, the teacher, the student, the mirror, me. It's a really fun way to move through the world. If you've never tried this, I highly recommend it. And we ask our clients to meet every other fellow group member as a peer and us, frankly, and us.
And us, that's right. We're
Yeah.
not looking to be put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
I love it so much, and I love how it changes the dynamic for people because sometimes people look around. Or you might join the class, look around, and be like, "Oh my God, there's a Tony winner, there's an Emmy
Yeah.
winner. Look at that person has 1,000 awards behind them or 1,000 shows
Yeah.
behind them." And it's a reminder that that person is not higher than you. They may be here trying to have a beginner's mind and try something totally new. And maybe they're scared
Exactly.
shitless
Yep.
and they feel the same things that you feel. And it's a great equalizer. We are all human beings just trying to make our way and express ourselves with our various art forms.
Yeah. So this is fun to play with in the Spark file, outside of the Spark file,
Hmm.
to avoid subordinating yourself, comparing yourself positively or negatively. Uh, every member of the Spark file, including you, listener, is really a spectacular person. And while people may be at different places in their creative and professional journeys, all of the people in the Spark file have something in common. They are all there to take big creative swings, like Laura just said. Maybe it's somebody who is super accomplished, but they're trying something new. All of that requires risk. All
Yep.
of it requires vulnerability and a lot of hard work. So remember, nobody's above you, nobody's below you. Haters to the left.
Love it.
Getting close to the end now. Gentle sparkler, let these truths resonate through your body electric. that's just a little tip of the hat to Walt Whitman and a little tip of the hat to a song from the movie Fame. Remember that, kids?
Yeah.
As long as you are present when you are present, do the work and aren't being a dick, however you're doing it right. So the creative
Yes.
process can be slippery,
Yep.
unwieldy, mysterious. Assessments of creative work are almost always entirely subjective, and quality is in the eye of the beholder. But let's try this on. What if showing up, being in the present moment, doing the work of engaging with your creative practice, whatever form it takes that day, and being a decent person? What if that were enough? What if checking those boxes meant you were creating correctly and doing it right? How would we feel? How would we feel about that? And how much more work, creative work, might we get done
Mm.
if we believe that? So them's the rules, Laura Camion,
Ah,
and that's me, Spark.
I love this spark. This was really fun. It's a great reminder digging into what's behind all of it. It's a lot of thought, it's a lot of heart, and even some science.
And even a little bit of science. So
Well
that's
done.
it. Thanks, Laura. This episode of the Spark File was made on the lands of the Lenape and the Mohican people. And as always, we hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Listen to us. If there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you'd like to learn more about how to coach with us to accomplish your creative goals, you can email us at getcreative@thesparkfile.com or reach us through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We'll even happily take your feedback, but you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you have taken recently.
You can follow us on social at The Spark File, and be sure to subscribe, to rate, to 5-star review this podcast. If you just take a few seconds to do that, it really does help other listeners to find us. Also, if you like this podcast, we hope you'll share it with people that you love. And if you didn't like it, there's a special place to the left for you, my friend.
If something lights you up and gets your creative sparks flying, we are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that's been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take that spark and fan it into a flame.
You know, you got to take it
And
make
it.
it. Bye.
Bye.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I wanna make or how I wanna be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.